Now let us continue with the Messiah's walk through the fulfillment of the messianic prophecies. Now, in the previous message, we covered how aspects of the domestic life of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan is forecast in the biblical narrative of Samson. That's what we covered last week. We want to recap this. Now, this narrative is in the book of Judges, spanning chapters 13 and 16. Now, it states in chapter 13 again, "And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years or 40 years. So Samson is born after this 40-year period, because he's born in this chapter, towards the end of chapter 13. In its fulfillment, this 40-year period represents the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's time among us as the Messiah, which ended in 1975. Then, according to the last verse of chapters 15 and 16, again of the book of Judges, Samson works as a defender or savior of Israel, or the children of Israel for two 20-year periods. Now, this could refer to the periods of 1981 to 2001, as I mentioned in the previous message. And the second 20-year period could refer to the period of 2001 to 2021, which is right around the corner. Now, throughout the prophetic narrative of Samson, we find that he is portrayed by women, those whom he is very intimate with, one being his wife, while the other three are not directly stated to be his wives, but an allusion is made toward that end. The betrayal of Samson by Delilah mirrors that of the crucifixion of Jesus. These are the points that we covered in the previous message. Now, in the Holy Quran, Allah informs us of the challenges of monogamous and polygamous marriages. As it pertains to polygamy, Allah states in the Holy Quran, which covers polygamy very thoroughly, he states, "And if a woman fears ill usage from her husband or desertion, no blame is on them if they effect a reconciliation between them. And reconciliation is better," meaning to solve the problem, reconcile the differences. "And you cannot do justice between wives, even though you wish it. But be not disinclined from one with total disinclination, so that you leave her in suspense. And if you are reconciled and keep your duty, surely Allah is ever forgiving, merciful." So this plainly states that Allah knows it's impossible to do justice among wives in a polygamous marriage. And there's reasons for that. Let's continue. "And if they separate, Allah will render them both free from want out of his ampleness, and Allah is ever ample, giving, wise." Now, on the part of justice among wives, those perceptions of desertion or whatever other ill feelings, they're subjective, although they're important. So, and this is really the same for monogamy. But when you have the addition of other wives, then it just complicates the situation that much more. Because if one feels that they are not getting justice, or they're just due, or feel deserted, then that of itself will affect the relationship. So justice is subjective, but it's certainly meaningful. So it's natural for a woman to want to be with her husband on a daily basis. That's just natural. It's also natural for a woman to feel deserted when she is not able to be with her husband at lengths of time, periods of lengths of time, As such, it is also reasonable that a woman might decide that she no longer wants to be involved in that marriage. These verses speak to the challenges and resolutions involved in marriage generally, but also in polygamous marriages. Now, in the Holy Quran, Allah also gives due diligence to the challenges arising within the domestic life of the Messiah. Being a wife of a messenger of God, in this case, the Messiah, is not an easy journey because of his enormous responsibilities. As such, disappointment may be a continuous experience for a duration. And when that disappointment is unchecked through the divine rules that govern marriage, it can cause people to make serious mistakes in how they treat the messenger of God, the Messiah. Now, Allah states to his Messiah, again in the Holy Quran, "O prophet, say to thy wives, if you desire this world's life and its adornment, come, I will give you a provision and allow you to depart a goodly departing." Allah also addresses the wives of the Messiah. He states, "O wives of the prophet, whoever of you is guilty of manifestly improper conduct, the chastisement will be doubled for her, and this is easy for Allah." Now, again, to Islamic scholars, you would not have this in the present tense if it was referring to something that happened 14 or 1500 years ago. This is Allah talking to the wives of the Messiah, the function of the Messiah. Well, why would Allah include this threat in the Holy Quran unless it was necessary? So we often hear the concept of an ugly divorce. Some people know friends or family members who would say, I had an ugly divorce. Well, this insinuates bitterness and treachery, which are outside the divine ordinances involved in handling divorce. Now, I wonder if divorce lawyers even consult the Holy Quran, or do you consult your scholarship based on the frivolous whims, frivolous and whimsical morals, if you want to call them that, of the legalities of divorce?